The Arizona Educational Foundation named Emmett Burton from Boulder Creek High School in the Deer Valley Unified School District. I wish they would shorten that one up. As the 2025 Arizona Teacher of the Year. Burton is a history teacher, and he's the founder of a business that works to redefine how students study world history. We welcome Emmett Burton to Arizona Horizon. Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
What did you think when you first heard that you were Arizona's 2025 Teacher of the Year?
I think it was a whirlwind of emotions, honestly. I think we all kind of have that kind of imposter syndrome going on. And so having all these people around me being like, you've got something, like run with it. It's been a really cool feeling.
And you're a history teacher making history.
Yeah, there it is.
What makes, well, I'm not going to ask what makes a good teacher, but what makes a good history teacher?
I think today it's not being afraid to, or not shying away from like what's going on around them, right? We talk about wanting to make these kids enter the workforce and enter the real world. And in order to do that, you kind of have to show them like what's going on and how can they navigate what's going on. When they're inundated with media bias or fake news or AI nowadays, you have to try and find ways to navigate all that and prepare them for what comes next and how do I, see myself in this world.
How do you see yourself? How do you do that?
There's a few ways. It's kind of like, I'd almost say it's like companion farming, where you sprinkle things throughout, and it kind of builds this like bigger kind of garden, where you have to meet the kids on their level, and you have to see like what's an authentic way that they can actually relate to this work and see themselves in it. I know my coworker, he talks about like building a window into the past, and I kind of use that as well of these historical figures aren't just people from before, but they're people just like me, and they have those insecurities and those values. And once they see that, they can kind of engage in the new world.
And you got to channel the energy of those little folks too. I mean, they've got a lot of energy. You got to get it in the right direction. And as far as getting I think you said you want your students to take ownership of themselves.
Absolutely.
What does that mean?
Something that I missed out on was we have that existential crisis. I think a lot of us have probably felt that as we get older, of who am I and what is my purpose and where do I fit in with the bigger grand scheme of things in this country. And so if they can have these moments where even like take this interview, right? We have certain questions that we're supposed to ask and talk about, but if you just breathe and like go off script for a second or things like that and bring that into a classroom, it kind of gets exciting. You get those like kind of the butterflies again. We're like, oh, that is kind of fun. And so I try and bring that in so that way they recognize who they are.
Can you tell when you're connecting? And conversely, can you tell when we're just not there yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in a classroom, they see through the BS. And it's one of those things where they're like, no, this is hogwash. And I think we do too. We kind of see where they're just kind of nodding along, but some of those kids are like sponges and they can really kind of soak it in, and they come back a couple days later and they're like, can we go back to that discussion?
Oh, that's great. When that happens, that must be very satisfying.
Yeah,
very rewarding.
It's a great feeling.
How'd you get into teaching?
I didn't want to at first. I just lied and said teaching sounded like a good profession to go into. And then when I was in college, a lot of these philosophers, whether it was like Wittgenstein or Schopenhauer or Rousseau, kind of reflected on like what I was thinking, like the insecurities of the world and like why is the world the way it is. And then these guys were like, well, here's what we think. And that really made me think, once I had that epiphany, I was like, oh my God, so many other people have to go through this. Because I almost missed it.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we have students who are worried about how do I change the world and looking around them, I wanted to equip them with skills that they can actually use going forward.
Well, I was going to joke about you having your own existential crisis, but you were kind of a troubled student, weren't you? You had your problems.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's that all about?
And I think it can be a few different things, whether it's the environment, how you're growing up, and just not being engaged in school at all. And so I think just between fights in elementary school and then middle school and then not really fitting in, I don't know if it was like little man syndrome or what it was. I was like 80 pounds on the wrestling team and I've got a 20-pound difference between me and the next guy, right? So it was kind of, everything was cultivating together to this island that I was on, and I just really couldn't reach out to any teachers, even though they were attempting to reach out to me, and they just couldn't reach.
When you look back, are there teachers now where you go, this is what I wanted, this is who I want to model myself after?
Kind of, yeah. I think I take the best parts of each of my teachers,
yes,
and really try and be like the fact that they never gave up, even though like some of them were chasing me on their bikes when I was walking on cross country teams and things like that. We're like, come on, dude, you got to keep going.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's definitely a few.
So you become a teacher. You got your existential crisis out of the way here, and the troubled student, all that kind of business. You're a teacher. A lot of teachers out there. When did you know you were a good teacher?
I don't know if I would even say I know.
You just won
for
the
sure.
award, Emmett. You got
Yeah.
you got to have a pretty good indication.
I think, I think the fact that I don't just have like a drawer that I'm pulling things out of like, this is what I did last year. You know, we're modifying everything and letting the kids kind of guide that inquiry-based activity, I think is really where you are able to adjust to the classroom and let that take you in one direction instead of being like, this is what we're doing today from bell to bell. But just recognize like, all right, these are people too.
So there's no light bulb aha moment when
I
you
don't think
recognize
so.
that?
I don't
You don't
think
think
so.
so? You're
I
still
don't.
waiting for that?
I am still waiting.
2025 Teacher of the Year, still waiting to be confirmation there.
Every day.
And by the way, you got a planned visit to the White House. You got to go some space thing going on. You got a lot of benefits from this, huh?
Yeah, I'm excited to see kind of what connections keep growing, whether it's in D.C. or whether it's I think it's in Alabama is with the
space deal.
camp.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really incredible. I don't think I would have ever guessed that I'd be in any of those spots.
And you got about 15 seconds to describe your business.
It's like a card game that built off of what I loved as a kid, like Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
Of just reimagining these historic figures instead of just names, but like how do we envision them in our dreams and just bringing that to reality.
Well, Emmett, you're a busy man and you're a successful man, and congratulations on being the 2025 Teacher of the Year. And thanks for sharing your story with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.